All right. All right, just grabbing the stream link here, and then we'll say we are live, and then we'll make sure that this works. That's us, and then send it to myself, and then I'll get on the chat here. Link posted. Okay, and then gonna get the link for me. All right, I just said hello in the chat. Okay, so the chat is there, and we're posted there, and I think we are good to go. So, good morning, everybody. It is about 11:10, and today we are doing the open house class, how to conduct an effective open house. Super important class, obviously, right? So when you are if you think way back to when you got your real estate license, or when you were thinking about getting your real estate license, one of the core things that you envisioned yourself doing was open houses, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. I have my real estate license, and so I'm going to be doing open houses. And so clearly, you have to have um, uh, a process. Um, you have to have a method, a methodology that you employ when you're doing open houses. If you go to open houses without a specific plan, you're going to be in a position where you might meet some people, and you might smile and be friendly, and you might hand out your business card, and there's nothing wrong with that, I suppose. Well, I guess there is. There's something hugely wrong with that. If your goal is to maximize the rate at which your open houses are yielding revenue for you, then yeah, that lackadaisical approach is a disaster. It's a disaster. So and I remember, excuse me, I remember going into open houses when I was a new agent. I remember going into open houses um, and doing that. It's not. Um, I suppose it's something that we all do, kind of to spread our wings and get comfortable. Is you just go to the open house and you smile and be friendly and hand out your business card, and that's it. But in that, if those are your actions, then you're really functioning in a customer service role, and not in a salesperson's role. And so your job, your description of what you do, you're not in, you're, of course you're in customer service, but that's an ancillary thing. Your core job is sales, right? You are a real estate salesperson, and the customer service is a byproduct of that. So if you skip the salesperson part and just do the customer service part, that's not a recipe for success, right? So the magic is when you can blend those two things together. When you can um, function as a salesperson and at the same time also be doing it from a service perspective, and not a slimy salesperson's perspective, then you're going to win, right? So don't get me wrong when I say you have to be a salesperson, that that I'm suggesting that you have to be that kind of salesperson. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. In fact, you want to employ a consultative approach to selling. It's a very passive, yet very effective way to sell, and we'll be talking about that in today's class. So I do I do remember my first probably 6 months or a year at open houses, and I remember them being fine. I didn't have a lot of success from them, but they made me feel good. I would go there and I would spend my time and I'd meet some people and I'd hand out my card. And at the end of the day, I felt like I had put some time into my business. And so that was um, rewarding or made me feel good. But the money was never there. I wasn't getting deals from it, and obviously that's a challenge, right? So what I did is um, made a decision. I made a decision to set out on a mission of discovery, and adopt a process of trial and error and measure my results. So I would try this strategy for 60 days, and then I would evaluate what were the results. And then I would change it up and I'd say, okay, let me try this strategy now for 60 days, and then I'll measure the results and we'll see how that works out. So, using this system of trial and error, goodness gracious, it feels like my voice feels like I woke up 5 minutes ago. I've been up for 3.5 hours. So, apologies for that. I'm sure as I get talking more here, it'll be good. But when so I engaged in this process of trial and error, or try this thing and then measure the results, and then try this thing and measure the results. And after doing that for a year and a half, 2 years, I finally settled into an open house strategy that worked really well for me. It was I guess I shouldn't say that it was a strategy. It was more of a kind of a combination of strategies. And I'm going to share those specific things with you today. Now, for the purposes of this open house class, there's like three different components. Um, I do like to start this class from the middle. So essentially, we're going to start with um, somebody arrives at your open house and they walk through the door. What do you do? So we're going to handle that piece first. Then we'll talk about open house prep, and then we'll talk about open house takedown. So very important to understand that when somebody walks through the door, they're going to generally fit into one of two categories. The first category I call socializers, and the second category I call leave me aloners. Leave me aloners. Um, and the socializers are obviously going to come through the door, and you're going to check out the house. They're going to say, "Hey, what's up?" And they're going to be energetic, and they're going to talk to you, and it's going to be like a friendly, energetic conversation. They're there to socialize and take a look at the house. The leave me aloners, on the other hand, are going to be much more, just not wanting to engage with you. They're going to, have certain body language. They'll be crossed off when they enter the door, as opposed to open. The words they say and how they say them. It's very easy to. It should be very easy for you to, in the first 5, 6 seconds of interacting or seeing and then interacting with somebody, to put them into one of those two categories. They're either kind of standoffish, leave me alone, or they're there to socialize and have fun and engage with you. And you want to make sure that mentally, when everybody walks through the door, you establish which category you believe that they're in, and then employ the correct strategy. So, And I suppose I should preface this by saying that there's certainly more than one path to success. Um, there are plenty of agents at Atova that do not use my open house strategy and still are very successful at open houses. This strategy was just what I adopted after a bunch of trial and error and measurements, and it worked really well for me. So, with that being said, with the leave me aloners, the I suppose the first thing that you want to know about them is that their expectation um, of visiting the open house is that their experience is going to be bad because they know that they're going to have to, they're curious enough about the house that they're willing to deal with the agent that's going to be there. And so it'll be cool to see the house, but it's going to suck to have to deal with the agent. So that part of our experience is going to be bad. Or their expectation is that their experience is going to be worse. So just a total disaster where when they walk through the door, they get greeted with one of those over anxious, excited, obnoxious salespeople. Like, hey guys, welcome to my open house. Before you take one step further, I want you to see that you're standing on real travertine tile. But come on in, come on in. Let me first show you the kitchen. In the kitchen, oh my gosh, you guys are going to love the kitchen. In the kitchen, we've got solid granite countertops and blah 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 blah. Right? So it's like, oh my gosh, I just walked into a nightmare, right? And so, believe you me, the leave me aloners, the folks that want to not engage you, they have an expectation that at the very least their experience from the agent perspective is going to be bad, and a worry that their experience is going to be worse because they're going to have to deal with one of those agents. So um, with that in mind, what we want to do when they first walk through the door is we identify that, hey, this is a leave me aloner. Then we say that we want to say to them, we want to say to them, it's a friendly greeting, warm welcome. That's just basic courtesy, right? So a smile. Hi guys, my name's Steve. Welcome to the open house. Thanks so much for stopping by. Go ahead and come on in, poke around, explore, have some fun. I'll step aside so you guys can enjoy yourselves. But if you have any questions, I'll be right here in the foyer. Um, what that does for the leave me aloner is it establishes that you're the lesser of two evils. You can almost see them breathing a sigh of relief. It's like, oh, okay, good. It's not one of those crazy agents. And they're actually like, this is pretty cool because they're letting us, he's letting us explore the home on our own. Hi, guys. My name's Steve. Welcome to the open house. Go ahead. Feel free to come on in, poke around, explore, have some fun. If you have any questions, I'll be right here in the foyer. Um, so it's a relief to them. It's like, okay, great. This is good. And they start walking around the house. Now, as they're walking around the house, I always envision them thinking to themselves, yeah, this is great. This started off good. But I bet when we go to leave, this agent is going to stand like right in the doorway, and we're going to have to listen to him talk for 15 minutes, and it's going to be a nightmare. And I want to blow that expectation out of the water. So when they go to leave, um, you simply say, I'm going to leave one part out, but you simply say, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day. And you let them go. Now, I've skipped a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to come back to it. But the first point here I want to make is that from the leave me aloner's perspective, you just provided like the most amazing experience for them ever, right? They arrived. There was a nice person that said hello. Then they were able to like look around on their own, and then they were able to leave without any hassle. From a leave me aloner's perspective, that is ideal. So you gave them a wonderful experience. The problem with that is that you didn't do your salesperson job at all, right? You gave them a great experience, but you got nothing from it. So the part that I left out, or one of the parts that I left out, the part that I left out about this piece is that when they go to leave, you don't simply say, um, "Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day." Instead, you say, uh, "Thanks so much for stopping by. Here's a printout of some other listings in the area. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day." And that's it. So, what we know about this printout thing. So, the printouts, what you're saying is some printouts of other listings in the area is actually what we call the open house package. And the open house package is certainly it has other listings in the area, but there's some other stuff that happens there as well, and we'll talk about that. The God, there's so much I want to say at the same time. It's like so um, the first thing is this: when you say thanks so much for stopping by, here's a printout of some other listings in the area. Have a wonderful day. When you say that, they will always happily take your listings. And the reason why, there's really two reasons why. The first reason why is that we already knew, or we know, that they are curious enough about houses that they're willing to tolerate having to deal with agents, right? So if we know they're curious enough about houses that they're willing to tolerate having to deal with agents, then when we offer them some other printouts of some listings, we know that that's stuff that they're interested in. We know, right? They've already proven it to us with their actions. So we know that they're interested in that. They will always take it for that reason alone. The other reason they'll always accept your listings is because they look at it as their free exit. You know, in their mind, they're saying, "Oh wow, all we have to do is take this paper, and then we get to like walk out the door, and you're not going to harass us." Yeah, sure, I'll take those papers. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Right? So it's their free exit, and we know it's stuff that they're interested in. So for those reasons, they'll always take your listings. Now, your listings is the open house package. And the open house package consists of a letter on letterhead. Then you have a sheet of colored paper, like a pastel blue or a pastel yellow, what have you. Um, and on that pastel piece of paper, I'll talk about the letter in a moment. On that pastel piece of paper, it will say, I'll do the letter first. The letter says, "Thanks so much for stopping by my open house today. I hope that by stepping aside and allowing you to explore the home on your own was enjoyable. I personally find pushy salespeople to be rather bothersome, so I prefer to treat others how I like to be treated." Second paragraph. "Prior to coming to the open house today, I invested the time um, to identify and or to prepare the attached listings. I've divided them into two categories. The first category is other homes here in the North End from $400,000 to $500,000, and the second category, or the second section, is homes here in the North End from 500 to 600,000. If you find any of these homes of interest, please give me a call. I'd be happy to break away from the open house and open any doors for you that you'd like. Hope to hear from you. Thanks so much, Steve. And then over on the corner, every letter that you ever do has to have a handwritten note, and the handwritten note has a second appeal, which is essentially, um, I'd love to be your agent and help you find the perfect home. Give me a call when you're ready to look at properties. I promise I'll do a great job for you! Exclamation point. Um, Steve, cell slash text, my phone number, and then a smiley face somewhere, so they remember I'm the friendly guy, right? So, so that's what the letter says. Um, you turn the page on the letter. You have the pastel piece of paper. Halfway down, it'll say, like in 22-point font, it'll say North Boise Homes, and then the next line will say 400 to 500,000. Then you turn that page, and you've got 8 to 10 or 5 to 10 listings that match that criteria. Then you have, and that's a full MLS printout, so it's one page per MLS property. Um, then at the end of that, you turn the page, and there's another sheet of pastel paper, and this time halfway down it says North Boise Homes, $500 to $600,000. You turn the page, and there's 5 to 10 of those listings. Um, at the very end of whichever section the subject property falls into, I like to put the subject property's MLS listing, and that way they have a copy of that as well. So if you're at an open house and it's listed at 474.9, that will be the last listing that is present in your $400,000 to $500,000 section. So the letter, pastel paper, listings, pastel paper, listings. The whole thing gets stapled. Your business card goes in the upper corner of the letterhead. So let's see, for you guys, it would be, so the logo is going to be here, and the letterhead will, and the business card will be here, or backwards. I don't know. But yeah, you have the letterhead on one side at the top of the page, and on the opposite from the letterhead, you have your business card. In this instance, I think that your business card should be paper clipped and not stapled. Folks will have a tendency to toss the open house package once they've consumed it because it just takes up space. But if they like what you've done and they like the message and they like your approach, they may pull your business card and hang on to that. And that way, when they see a house that they want to view, they'll pull out your card and call you. So paperclip, not staple, for the open house packages for the business card. So the package itself is stapled. Your business card is paper clipped to the upper right hand corner of the letterhead. So you've prepared your open house package in that way. You have your letter on letterhead with the personal note stapled with the structure that I just outlined. I recommend that you bring for your Leave Me Aloners. Honestly, I was always preparing 10. Unfortunately, you find yourself recycling. I had 4 visitors today, so I'm recycling 6 of these packages. But recycling the excess was less painful than running out. I think I have been battling a little bit of a cold the past few days, so apologies again there. Um, but yeah, recycling some at the end is less painful than running out. And also depends on where you're doing your open house. So if you're in the north end, 10 is not going to be enough. If you're in Cuna, you probably won't need more than 3. So certainly feel free to apply a layer of logic to how many open house packages you bring with you, but just tend to bring towards the high end of that logical range so that you have a good chance of making sure that you have enough for every open house. So, why are we employing this strategy, or what? How does this strategy really crystallize into getting you clients? How does it work? Why is it working? Um, so the magic here is it's already pretty cool so far, but the magic hasn't even happened yet, or we haven't talked about it yet. So, 2 things. First thing is when I was doing all those open houses at the very beginning, just being customer service guy, and then later in my trial and error, one thing that I always observed, especially with the folks in the Leave Me Aloner category, is that they would tend to, anytime I tried to talk to them or connect with them during the open house, either when they arrive or together with them while we're looking at the house or when they're leaving, anytime I tried to connect with them, I always felt like I was in second position. If they're just getting there or they're looking at the house and I'm trying to talk to them, I'm a distraction. Their primary goal at that moment in time is to look at the house, and I'm just over here in their ear distracting them, right? And so I'm in second position. If I try to connect with them when they're leaving, I'm in second position again because their primary goal at that moment is to get in their car and move on with the rest of their day, right? So anywhere in this environment or in this time, I always felt like I was in second position trying to talk to these folks, and I really desperately wanted to find a time where I could speak to them in first position, where I have their focus and they're listening to me. And the first opportunity where I identified that that was possible was when they're in their car in transition from where they're going, where they just left, to where they're going. Because at that moment in time, whoever's in the passenger seat is going to have nothing better to do than to flip through your open house package. And so when they get into the car, they will be inclined to just skip your letter and to start looking at the listings. But your little personal note, at the very least, will get read because it's somebody wrote something, and so it's this. I think there's a curiosity there. I think there's people want to be respectful. Yeah, if they took the time to write something, yeah, I kind of want to read it, right? So, I was gonna check. I guess I'll come back to that. So the handwritten note is always going to get read. It just is, and oftentimes that open house, the handwritten note will result in them also reading your letter. So the psychology there is, if they took the time to write me this little note, maybe I should take the time to read their letter. Now, remember that the letter is, that's what I was going to show you guys. The letter is here in resources, and then it's in lead development structure, lead development templates, and you can scroll down and it's right there. Now, the key thing you want to remember about it is that it can't be too long. In fact, I would even think about shortening this up a little bit. But you can see here we talk about our two different areas. We talk about, we actually have this. I leave this because I never want to forget to talk about it. Um, your letters will probably say, I hope that by stepping aside, I enabled you to explore the home freely and to your enjoyment. I was really into, um, I hope that by stepping aside. So, I hope that by stepping outside, excuse me. So I did. One of the two last scenarios that I tested. One was me stepping aside, but staying like in the foyer or in the kitchen, and the other was me literally stepping outside. And both of these strategies, by the way, this go ahead and check out the home and have fun. This only really works well with a vacant listing. With an owner occupied listing where there's personal property in the home, you have to a certain extent, um, function as a security guard, and so you need to stay in their periphery. So the strategy is the same with a owner occupied property, but you would, instead of saying, go ahead and feel free to explore, poke around, have some fun, I'll step aside so you guys can enjoy yourselves, you would say, go ahead, come on in, poke around, explore, have some fun. I'll give you guys some space so you can enjoy yourselves. And then your role is to, if they go into the master bedroom, you kind of go into the hallway adjacent the master bedroom, so that they know that you're nearby, but you're just not right on them, right? So giving them space, but not letting them roam freely. That's solely the difference between occupied and vacant. If it's vacant, let them explore on their own. If it's occupied, stay in their periphery, but still give them their space. And then modify that opening greeting accordingly. Um, if you guys do have questions, I am in the chat and can see them. If for some reason the chat isn't working, you're welcome to text me as well. And because this is probably, I think, only the third time I've used that I've monitored the chat. So um, they're driving, they're in transition. They have nothing better to do than to look at the open house package that you gave them. They are going to flip through it, hopefully having read your note, maybe having read your note and your letter. Um, and oh, I was going to do the outside thing is where I was at. So I'll come back to that. So the outside thing, I would literally say, come on in, guys. Feel free to check out the house. I'll step outside so you can really enjoy yourselves, and poke around and have fun. And if you have any questions, I'll be right outside the front door. And I'd close the door on them. And I always pictured them like looking at each other, and saying, "That's weird." We've never been to an open house before where they greeted us and then left the building. Um, and in an environment where consumers are generally expecting to deal with having to deal with a regular agent, or we're gonna have to deal with a nightmare agent. When the expectation is bad or worse, and that's how most agents function. And you can do something that no other agent has ever done before. That's not a bad thing. You're separating yourself from a group that they perceive to be um, sometimes a pain to deal with. And so for me, it was like a psychological experiment, and it worked really well. I think separating myself from all the rest of the agents by doing something unique like that, it not only did it make me memorable. We went to 15 open houses, but that one guy that stepped outside, he really was doing things different. So I was memorable, and then because I'm calling their attention, in that letter, we're calling their attention to the fact that what we did on purpose. So that's really important because it would be easy to misperceive. Go ahead, come on in, poke around, explore, have some fun. If you have any questions, I'll be right here in the foyer. Um, it can be that that method of engagement can be misinterpreted as you were lazy. You just didn't do your job. And so the letter calls it out specifically. I hope that by stepping aside, that you were able to enjoy exploring the home. I personally find pushy salespeople to be rather bothersome, so I prefer to treat others how I like to be treated. When you call attention to the fact that what you did on purpose and for a reason, the value is created. They're like, that's pretty cool. We like the fact that he gave us our space, and um, there's a connection that's also made because you're talking about how you like to be treated. So you're kind of establishing yourself as a real person, and you're establishing yourself as a thoughtful and considerate person. There's a lot that happens in that paragraph. So, but here's the magic, okay? Here's the magic. Here's where it all crystallizes, and here's why it works. So, it is that every home buyer has a resistance threshold. And that resistance threshold is that they're going to be, to some degree, they're going to be reluctant to engage an agent. We are we're thinking about buying, but not until, whatever we get the job or whatever the criteria is. So we're thinking about buying, but probably not for a couple of years. So when that's the situation, their reluctance to contact an agent is very high, right? They don't want to contact an agent and have them show property, and they don't want to open that door because they know if they open that door, then they're going to have to endure that salesperson for 2 years harassing them. So our resistance threshold to contacting an agent is very high. Um, and typically, even if they see a house that they're interested in, so they're early in the buying process, they see a house that they're interested in, they're not going to call to schedule an appointment to go see it. If it happens to show up as an open house, they might poke their head in, but they're not going to engage an agent yet. The resistance threshold is high. The letter and your actions and the letter have the effect of reducing that resistance threshold. So where they would not normally pick up the phone and contact an agent to look at a property, because you have with your actions shown that you're not a pushy salesperson, you've called their attention to that fact in the letter, the resistance threshold is lowered, and so if they do see a listing in your open house package that they find of interest, where there's no way in a million years they would call an agent to go see it, because you've lowered their resistance threshold, they will call you. So if their curiosity about that home reaches this high, so their curiosity or their interest exceeds their resistance threshold, that's when they're going to call. But if the resistance threshold was still up here, even though they're this curious, they're not going to call, right? And so you're changing the dynamic. So with the strategy, with the sum of the strategy, you're lowering the resistance threshold and you're giving them property. So it's like you're creating a perfect storm. You're lowering their resistance threshold. You're putting properties in front of them that hopefully they're going to be curious about. And then where they would not call any other agent, they'll call you and say, "Hey, would you mind, would you mind opening that door for us?" "Yeah, sure, no problem." And they'll even say things like, "We're not really buying right now." And you'll say, "Yeah, you know what? It's no problem. I'm in it for the long term. So, if you guys aren't even going to buy for 2 or 3 or 5 years, it does not matter to me. I'm still happy to help you guys out. And from time to time, if there's a house you want to see, give me a call. Well, starting with this one right now today." So you go over, you show the property, and there you go. When you leave the open house, you have to put a note on the door, and we're going to talk about that in the prep section. We'll talk about the post-it notes that you're going to put on the door when you're setting up your open house, and the post-it note you put on your door when you're taking down the open house, and the post-it note you put on the door if you're ever leaving to show another property. So at this juncture of the class, I have to talk about sellers getting mad. So I guess the post-it note simply says, "Had to step away for a few minutes. If you're here for the open house, please call me at this number." And then you put Steve and a smiley face that goes on the door. Most people, if people happen to come while you're away, most folks will see the note, get a little frustrated, and just leave. And that's fine. You've got a bird in the hand, right? Somebody's willing to let you show property. You're going to go after that. That's a no-brainer. Sometimes they'll see the note and they will call you. If they do call you, you just want to give them an honest accounting of how long you think it'll take before you get back. Um, and honestly, if I'm connecting with the buyers that I'm with, I probably won't even answer my phone. And that will make the visitor even more frustrated, and then they'll still leave. But it's still worth it because you've got somebody that's letting you show property. And that's the beginning of a relationship that will ultimately, hopefully, turn into a sale. So the problem with this is that, uh, especially with owner-occupied properties, is that uh, the seller sometimes does not leave the neighborhood for the open house. So you always want to have sellers not present at the open house. So, hey, we're going to be doing an open house this Saturday. You guys need to go to the park or to a movie or whatever you want to do. But from 12 to 5, I need you not to be here. Um, so they're going to be gone. But sometimes they're just going to go over to the neighbor's house, their buddies, down the street. Or they will go to lunch. And then after lunch, they're going to go shopping. But between lunch and shopping, they decide to drive by the open house just to kind of see how it's going because they're excited, right? Um, whether they're at the neighbor's house or whether they're driving by, if they see that the door is closed and there's a post-it note on the door and they read that you left to go who knows where, they're going to be mad. They're going to be livid. And they're going to call. And when they call, you need to educate them. They're going to say, we cleaned like crazy yesterday for this open house. And then our whole family packed up and left the house for 5 hours in the middle of a Saturday. And then when we drove by, we find that you left, you abandoned it. That is not okay. We are pretty upset. That's the call that you're going to get. When you get that call, you have to tell them it's a little bit of tough love type of call. You have to tell them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can understand where you're coming from, especially because you only have parts. Forgive me, guys. Let me turn that off. All right. Oops. Get back to the chat. Okay. So you only have part of the story, so I can understand how you feel that way. But I can tell you that if the opportunity that I had that required me to leave the open house happens again, so if I have a similar opportunity the next open house, I'm going to leave again. And the reason why is that every time we get an open house visitor, there's some open house visitors that you can tell are just tire kickers. They're just there because they're curious and it's fun to look at houses and they're not really buyers. Other open house visitors, you can tell, are actually in the market. And anytime we encounter a buyer that's actively in the market and they're willing to allow us to show them another home, down the street and around the corner, um, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go show that property. And the reason why is because I've identified them as a bona fide buyer. And if I can establish a relationship with that buyer, there's an opportunity for redirection. So we go out, I show them one house today, and then they go about their business. I'm going to follow up with those buyers on Wednesday, and I'm going to ask them if they want to take a second look at your house or view any other properties this upcoming weekend. And they'll maybe say yes. And so I go out, we show them, maybe they don't want to look at your house right away. They want to look at other houses. And so I take them out and I show them 3, 4 other houses. At that time, I'll have an opportunity for redirection. I'll have an opportunity to say, hey, would you guys like to take a second look at that house where we met? If I have connected with this bona fide buyer and I'm spending time with them, I have an opportunity to try and sell them your house. If I just say, hey, thanks so much, have a nice day, and they're gone, we have no line of communication with that bona fide buyer. And so it's just smart business to do that. And so yeah, if I have that opportunity again next week, I'm going to do it again. And so usually they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, we get it, and then it's fine. But you have to be prepared to have that conversation because at some point they're going to find out, and you're going to have that conversation. Um, if you're doing an open house for another Atova agent and the seller discovers that you've left, um, the seller is likely not going to contact you. They're going to contact their agent, and then that agent's going to call you and be like in a huff, like, "Why did you do this?" At which point you're going to need to say, "Because Steve told me to." And then I'll call them and I'll say, "Yeah, remember back when you did the open house class, we talked about this and handling it that way?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay." And then they'll call their client back and have that same conversation with them that I just had with you. Okay, so you're in first position. They've read the letter. They call you. They say, "Hey, can you show us this property?" You say, "Sure. I'll be there in 5 minutes." So you don't take any of your signs down. You don't turn off any of the lights. You don't do anything. You just grab your stuff and lock the house. Obviously, you need to make sure it's secure. So usually that's just the front door. So you'll exit the house, make sure you have your phone and your lockbox key, and lock the door, leave, go show the property. Spend as much time with them as it takes. If they want to look at 4 houses, show them 4 houses. Totally abandon the open house if you need to. Whatever you need to do to take care of that particular buyer. Um, let's see. What part do I want to do next? I guess I should come back to and talk about the path with the socializers. So when somebody walks through the front door and they are a hey, how's it going, and really energetic and wanting to connect, if you employ the leave me aloneer strategy with a socializer, they're just going to think that you're rude, right? Like, what's wrong with that guy? He didn't even want to talk. And so you gotta read the visitor as they come through the door and employ the appropriate strategy. So with the socializers, the strategy is totally the opposite. You do want to hang out with them and connect and shoot the breeze and talk about the weather. And I like to look at the shirts that they're wearing. If I could get a glimpse of the car that they drove up on, if there's a ski rack, it's like ski season's is coming soon. You excited about that? Talk to them about skiing. Ask them where they go skiing. If the kid's wearing a baseball shirt, talk about baseball. Or hey, do you play ball, or do you just like watching the the major league baseball? This conversational stuff, right? So the stuff that you know how to do because you are a social being. Do that stuff, right? Connect with them. Be a social being. Try to really connect with them. So you don't want to be uh, you want to try and be real. So if you can connect with them on a social level, but also on a real level, it will benefit you more. So tone down the salesperson socialness and turn up the regular person socialness. And when you do that, you'll connect with them better. That's a part of it, right? So it's part of the getting them as clients, connecting with them, and establishing rapport. With the little kids, I have to give the little kids fist bumps and thumbs ups, and make them feel like I'm friendly and don't and you want to be careful. You don't want to get too chummy with their kids because it's like, hey, back off. These are my kids, and so it's a quick fist bump. Hey, what's up, guys? And then you're right back to the adults. Don't get in here on this conversation with the kids because people don't like that. So it's subtleties, right? The Pay attention to those subtleties because they do make a difference. Um, so, employing all the things you know about how to be real person social without offending anybody, try to connect with folks and establish rapport. So, you're doing that as they're looking at the open house. They're looking in different rooms, you're talking with them and having conversation. Um, you will be inclined to, after you've connected with these people, to say something like, well, hey, thanks for so much for stopping by. Here's my card. I'd love to work with you guys. Please give me a call, and I hope to hear from you. Have a great day. All right, thanks, guys. Bye bye. That type of stuff, right? That is wholly inadequate. With the socializers, part one, establishing rapport. Part two is actually doing your job. And that comes in the form of telling them what you want and telling them why you deserve it. Or perhaps better said, telling them that you want them to work with you and explaining to them why they'll be better off if they do so. That's what you need to do. I want you guys to work with me, and here's the reasons why you should. That's the conversation that you have to have with every socializer. I want you guys to work with me, and here's the reasons why you should. I'll give you that conversation here in a minute. But the success of like your open houses. So never, ever, ever evaluate the success of an open house based upon whether or not you feel like you've got a client that day. That's a disaster. You don't get clients that day. You establish the beginning of relationships that day. So you want to judge the success of your open house not by whether you feel like you got a client that day, but by whether or not you did your job. Because if you did your job, if you do your job with every open house visitor, then you can give yourself a pat on the back because you know that having done your job, that at the very least you maximized the probability of getting clients today or in the future. And that's all you can control, right? You can't control people's decisions, but you can control your actions. And if you employ the right actions, you get that pat on the back because you're giving yourself the best chance. With the leave me aloners, it means offering the friendly greeting, offering the friendly exit, and making sure they all get that open house package. That's a wonderful experience. You've lowered the threshold. If there's something of interest, they're not going to call anybody else but you because they know that when they call you, they're not opening a door of some crazy nightmare agent that's never going to stop harassing them. You've proven with your actions that you are low pressure salesperson and they appreciate and value that. With the socializers, you connect with them, socializing while they're looking at the home, and when they go to leave, you need to have that conversation with them. You guys, I want you guys to work with me, and here's the reasons why you should. If you have that conversation with them, then, so if every leave me aloner experiences that strategy and gets the open house package, and if every socializer experiences the social interaction and then gets that conversation at the end, then you've done your job and you can give yourself that pat on the back. It's hard though. It's hard because when you're socializing with them, it's very, very challenging. In fact, it's impossible. What you're going to look for is you're going to look for a moment in time where you can transition from the hey, we're shooting the breeze into hey, let's talk a little bit of business. You're going to look for that perfect transition moment, and I can tell you that it does not exist. It doesn't exist. So you really want to look at it as like downshifting in a car, or just slamming on the brakes. It's not going to feel smooth and clean, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to. You just have to bite the bullet and slam on the brakes, swap the conversation over, and go. So when you feel that their open house visit is beginning to conclude, you will slam on the brakes, begin the conversation. So I'm going to give you guys the long-winded version of the conversation. I forgot to put the class name. Open house. It's how to conduct This is totally unimportant, but I can't help myself now that I saw that it was done. How to conduct an effective open house. All right. So, the class, or the conversation rather. So, the conversation is that you, um, there's three reasons that you should. I'm going to give you guys the long-winded version. So you're going to want to get this a little bit more brief, but I'm going to give you the long version so that you have all the raw materials that you need to craft your own shorter version. Um, I'd like for you to work with me, and there's three reasons why you should. The first reason is that I'm not in any hurry. There's a lot of buyers, excuse me, there's a lot of agents out there that are going to show you three or four houses, and then they're going to start asking you buying questions like, all right, well, hey, which one's your favorite? That's a leader to them trying to say, well, we should write an offer on that one. I don't work that way. You guys will know the right home when you see it, and until we've done that, I am happy to show you as many houses as it takes. So whether we look at 5 houses or 20 houses or 50 houses to find the right one, I'm in it with you for the long haul. I will take you to see as many houses as it takes to help you find the right one. The second reason that you should work with me is that I'll help you get a great deal, or at the very least, a fair deal. A lot of home buyers make a mistake in that they evaluate the deal that they're getting based upon the difference between what the seller was asking and what they paid for the property. Oh, I got a great deal on this property. They were asking 300 grand. I picked it up for 285. So I got a $15,000 deal on that property. I'm pretty excited. No, no, because there's nothing that prevents a seller with a property that's worth 280 from asking 300. So when you paid 285, you didn't get a $15,000 deal. You actually overpaid by $5,000. So the first thing I'll do for you once we have found the right home is I'll prepare a buyer's value analysis for you. We'll look at comparable recent sales, the sold price per square foot of those sales. We'll run an average and we'll multiply that times the property square footage. And essentially, what that will give us is an estimated market value. And now that you know about what the market value of the property is, now you're in a position to make an educated offer. So if you know the thing's only worth 285 and you want a little bit of instant equity, maybe you offer 275, hoping they counter at 280, and then you got yourself a fair deal, right? So um, I'll once we've found the right home, I'll prepare a buyer's value analysis for you so that you know what the market value of the property is and can make educated decisions to make sure that you get a good deal. The last reason that you should work with me is that I'm very good at what I do. There's a lot of real estate salespeople out there. I consider myself more of a real estate professional. There's a million moving pieces in a real estate transaction. You've got title, escrow, appraisal, financing, inspection. And we've all heard stories of, maybe yourself or a friend or a family member of that nightmare real estate transaction. Um, I enjoy proactively dealing with all of the components of escrow to make sure that that process is A, not only fun for you guys, but more importantly, B, not risky. This is a multi-$100,000 transaction, and if you're not working with somebody that understands the business side of the business, you can be at risk. So, bottom line is, I'll take the time to help you find the right property. I'll help you get a great deal, or at least a fair deal, and I will make sure that the process is fun and safe. So, out of all the people that you might encounter, all the agents that you might encounter out there, um, I'm the one that you should work with because I'm going to take the greatest care of you. Um, that's it. That's the conversation. So, um, I fumbled it up, I think, at the beginning a little bit. There's a you do want to get good at the delivery, and the delivery needs to be, and you want it to be refined. It does not need to be It does not need to sound conversational. It is okay for this piece to sound scripted, or to, at the very least, to sound well thought out and perhaps even rehearsed. I mean, you want the delivery to be clean. Um, hey, before I got, hey, before I say goodbye, I just want to let you guys know that if this is um, what I'm going to do here, sorry, I'm going to do it all over again. So I'm going to do it all over again because I want to exhibit to you the same type of practice that you should be doing in preparation for your open house. You really should be, um, just walking down the hallway and saying this to yourself, or go stand in front of a mirror and recite saying it. You want to get good at it. So I'm going to give it to you all again, and this time I'm going to do a little bit more of the transitional stuff as well. So you're socializing with them. You're going to say, and you could sense that we're wrapping up and getting ready to leave. So you say to them, "Hey, before you guys leave, briefly here, I want you to know that you guys should consider working with me. And there's three reasons that you should. The first reason is that I'm not in a hurry. A lot of agents are going to show you three, four, five properties, and then they're going to start asking you buying questions. All right, well, which one's your favorite? They're going to try and persuade you into writing an offer on something. I don't work that way. Um, I know that you will know the right home when you see it. And until we've found the right one, I'm not going to try and persuade you into doing anything. I will take the time to help you find the right home. And whether that means 5 houses or 20 houses or 50 houses, I'm in it with you for the long haul. Second reason that you should work with me is that I'll help you get a good deal, or at the very least, a fair deal. A lot of buyers make a mistake in that they evaluate the deal that they're getting as the difference between what the seller was asking and what they paid for the property. And that's a huge mistake because there's nothing that prevents a seller with a home that's worth 285 from asking 300. See, I skipped a part there. So I'll go back to that. So the second reason is that I'll help you get a great deal, or at the very least, a fair deal. A lot of home buyers make a big mistake. By the way, right there, you're kind of using fear as a sales tool, and it's I don't like to do that necessarily, but it's effective. You'll actually see people's eyes open up when you say a lot of home buyers make a mistake. A lot of buyers make a big mistake, and they get what, and they're going to pay attention to you now. It really re-engages them. The second reason that you should work with me is that I'll help you get a great deal, or at the very least, a fair deal. A lot of home buyers make a mistake in that they evaluate the deal that they get as being the difference between what the seller was asking and what they paid for the property. So, oh, I got a great deal on this property. The seller was asking 300,000. I picked it up for 285. I got a 15,000 deal on that property. I'm really excited. No, no, that's a huge mistake because there's nothing that prevents a seller with a home that's worth 280 from asking 300. So when you picked it up for 285, you didn't get a $15,000 deal. You actually overpaid by $5,000. So the very first thing I'll do for you once we've found the right home is I'll do a buyer's value analysis for you. It'll look at comparable recent sales and we'll run the numbers and we'll get a really good feel for the estimated market value of the property. And once you know that, hey, it's probably only worth 280, if you're looking to get some instant equity, you're not going to offer 285. Maybe you're going to offer 275, hoping that they counter at 280, so you get a $5,000 deal. Um, we'll look at it from a business standpoint, from a numbers standpoint. And the third reason that you should work with me is that I'm gonna keep you guys safe. A real estate transaction is very complicated. There's a million moving pieces. You've got title, escrow, appraisal, financing, inspection. There's a lot of areas where things can go south. And if you're working with a regular real estate salesperson, you very well may find yourself in trouble. I don't consider myself a regular agent. I'm more of a professional, and I very much enjoy proactively managing my transactions. So In that way, I will not only make the process more fun for you guys because there's not a million problems being happening all over the place, but I'll also keep you safe. And given that we're talking about a multi-$100,000 transaction, it's very important that you work with somebody that is a professional in their field and not just some smiling face, some salesperson. So, bottom line here is I'll take the time to help you find the right home. I'll help you get a great deal, or at the very least, make sure you get a fair deal. And I'll proactively manage the entire process to make sure that you guys enjoy yourselves and to keep you safe. So I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Again, my name is Steve. Here's my business card. What I would really appreciate that you would do is if you could take my business card and maybe put it in the instruction manual for your car in your glove box. And that way, when you're driving down the street and you see a home that you want to look at, you just pull my card out, give me a call, I'll run over, I'll open the door for you. But I'd love to work for you. I'd love to take great care of you guys. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'd love to be your agent. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye bye. That's it. Make no mistake about it, it is an elevator pitch. You want to get that, ideally, you want to get that down to about 60 seconds, a minute and a half. What I probably just did was 3 minutes. Another thing that when you're delivering that is you want to deliver it kind of like how I did, with very little pauses. It's almost like you're just going, right? You're reciting it and you're saying the whole thing. If you pause, it's an opportunity for them to interject and to shut you down. So you want to get your full elevator pitch out in one nice, even delivery without providing them with an opportunity to disrupt. Um, um, Short version. Um, Hey, before you guys leave, very quickly here, I want you to know that I think that you should consider using me as your agent, and there's three reasons why. The first reason is I will take the time to help you find the right home. A lot of agents are going to show you a few properties, and then they're going to try and persuade you into writing an offer on something. I don't work that way. You guys will know the right home when you see it, and I'm in it with you for the long haul. So whether we look at 10 homes or 20 homes or 50 homes, I will take the time to help you find the right home for you. Second reason is I hope you get a good deal, or at the very least a fair deal. A lot of buyers make a mistake, and that's that they evaluate the deal that they get between the difference between what the seller was asking and what they paid for the property. But that's a big problem, because there's nothing that prevents a seller with a home that's worth 290 from asking 300. So if you picked it up for 285, you didn't get a $5,000 deal if the home's only worth 280, right? So the first thing I'll do for you is I will look at market data to establish an estimated value of the property, and then we can use that in our negotiations to make sure that you end up with a good deal, or at the very least a fair deal. Lastly, third reason you should work with me is that I'm much more of a real estate professional and much less of a regular salesperson. So there's a million moving pieces in a real estate transaction: title, escrow, appraisal, financing, inspection, and things can go wrong. I enjoy proactively managing all that, not only to keep you guys safe, but also to make the process more fun. If things aren't blowing up left and right, the home buying process can be much more enjoyable. So, bottom line is, I'll take the time to help you find the right home. I'll help you get a great deal, or at the very least, a fair deal. And I'll proactively manage the whole process to minimize risk and make the process fun and enjoyable for you. So, again, my name is Steve. I'd love to be your agent. Please, here, take my card. And if you would, put my card somewhere safe. Put it in your glove box, in the instruction manual for the car. Put my card in there, and that way, when you're driving around, if you see a home that you like, you can pull my card out, give me a call, and I'll be happy to open doors for you. So No pressure. Whenever you're ready, whether you're looking now or next year or whenever it might be, give me a call. I'd love to take great care of you guys. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye. Um, that's it. That's what you got to do. So I gave it to you guys there 3 times in the training class. You should do it yourself 30 times till you get good at it. Um, Getting good at it in practice does not mean you'll be good at it in real life. In fact, even when for me, I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff. I struggled, and so I had it nailed in my head. But when I try and do it in person the first time, I get a little nervous, right? And I fumble my words and things don't come out right, and it's like, ah, man, I kind of blew it. And so the guest will leave, and I'll feel bad, like I didn't do a good job of it. And then the next open house visitor will come, and I'll try again, and I still do bad. It's like, I feel bad, but maybe it was a little bit better than the first time. Anyway, you just acknowledge the fact that you're gonna have to pay your dues. You very well may have to try to have this conversation 5 times or 10 times or 20 times um, before you feel like you're in the flow now. And just be prepared to pay that price. And in fact, embrace it. I like to tell people fail fast and fail often. If you acknowledge that in any new activity, you're going to have to fail at it, 10 times before you're good at it, then you might as well get all 10 of those times out of the way as quickly as possible, right? So book yourself open houses and have those failing conversations as quickly as you can so that you can get good sooner. That's the reality of it. That's the logic of it. And so you should look at it that way. Um, okay, that I believe is the middle part of the class. They've arrived. What do we do? Um, Prep and takedown. So we have probably about 15 minutes of prep and 5 minutes of takedown. So 15, 20 minutes left in this class, and then we will conclude. So prep is prep is going to be marketing your open house. So if you're going to do an open house, it's worthwhile to market it correctly so that you get visitors, right? So if it's worth doing an open house, it's worth marketing it properly. So with open houses, really, it's the number one source of open house traffic is your signage. So with your signage, you're going to want to um, we're just going to delete this from the last class, and I'm just going to delete it with the background color, which I'm going to change to white, and then we'll delete that. Okay, so signage, your open house signs. So if you have a property that's, let's say this is the major street, and let's say this is like the side street that the house is on. So this is like coming into the neighborhood. And then there's another street here, and let's say a turn here, and the house is here. All right, so this is where your open house is. So let's say this is like Eagle Road, and this is XYZ Street into the subdivision, and just random streets here. So where do we want to put our signs? So with the signage, especially because it's the number one source of traffic, I like to sign very aggressively. So a lot of times you'll see, a sign at the entrance, a sign at the entrance to the subdivision, and you'll see a sign at every place where you need to turn, and then a sign in front of the open house. That's kind of a typical setup that you'll see an average agent do. I would recommend that you do what I did. So I would always, always, always frame the entrance to the subdivision. So signs on both sides. Framing the subdivision, having two signs there, um, not only does it create more visibility, but it makes it seem like somehow more of an event, like double signage. Maybe it's a new open house, a new listing, or maybe there's a price change or something. It creates some, I don't know, it's a little bit more substance, and so I think it pulls more people in. Also, on all of our signs, we need to have flags. I recommend that you use flags and not balloons. Balloons will tend to, in the summer heat, they'll fall down, and so your open house will be done, and you'll see all your balloons like blowing around on the ground. Or they also oftentimes sometimes get stolen. Little kids will be like, "Oh, balloons! I'll just take these." The flags tend to stick around. So, and they're more visible, in my opinion. So, you want to make sure that you get consistency in your signs. We have a question here. Are there rules on where you can put the signs, um, like on the sidewalk, or do we put them in the street? That's a great question. I will answer that in just a moment. So, we've framed our entrance. We have flags on all the signs. And primarily we do that because we want to achieve consistency. You might have another agent that comes in after you've started your open house and they drop their open house sign next to yours. And now they've got their turning signs going the other way. Um, well, they had one sign. They had one sign. You had two signs. Yours had flags. Theirs didn't. They're more curious about your house. And so because you're showing them that you're giving them an easy path to follow your signs because all your signs are the same. They all have flags. They know how to get to. It's very clear how to get to the open house that had more of the fanfare at the entrance. So I'm going to take especially when it's a busy road, I'll go up about 300 yards. So envision about the size of like a football field, or maybe, um, like maybe twice the length of an average, grocery store, or like a city, like a half a city block. Um, and I'm going to put another sign. And this is not at an intersection. I'm going to do the same thing over here. This is not at an intersection. This is just driving down the street. And the reason why is that it can be a fast road. So if I'm driving by at 55 miles an hour, by the time I see this sign, I might not have enough time. I might not have enough time to get over. It's like so I fly by. It's like, oh, open house, but I'm not going to U-turn to go see it, and they just keep on driving. Whereas if you're giving them a notice that there's an open house coming up, they'll pay more attention and be more prepared to make that turn. So that's really almost like a traffic sign. And then lastly, what I'll do, and you don't have to necessarily do this. I mean, we're already at one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 signs. But what I did is I always had 15 signs, so 3 boxes of 5 in my trunk. And what I would do is I would also sign up the major cross streets. There's not a distance here, but we'll just do that. And if there's a back entrance to the subdivision, I would sign that. Or if there's no back entrance to the subdivision, I would um, instead I would put a sign here at this major intersection pointing that way, and then this one pointed obviously this way, and then I would sign this major intersection here pointing that way as well. So really I'm trying to funnel in open house traffic from not 2 but 4 major intersections. And it's way over the top. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 signs there. If I did have the ability to come this way instead, I would have 11 and 12, and if there's another turn, maybe 13. So 15 always gave me enough to hit the signs the way that I wanted to. And it's crazy. It's over the top. And people came into my open houses. They would come into my open house and they would say, your signs, your signs are great. And I'd say, well, hey, thank you. You know, I set up a lot more signs than a typical agent because I like to go the extra mile. And I go the extra mile not only in my signs, but also in all other aspects of my business. And so again, it was really fun for me. For me, having lots of signs out there, um, routinely, I would have people coming through the door, um, not like super impressed, but impressed. You know, I could tell that they were like, that's a lot of signs you've got out there." And that's wonderful. I mean, anytime that you can make a positive impression on somebody before you've even seen them, yeah, it just gives you a leg up, right? You're starting from a stronger position because you've done something that others don't. So at the beginning, you don't have to go crazy like this, but I would suggest that you consider growing to a 10 to 15 open house sign inventory so that you can sign extensively like this. Not only will you get more open house visitors, but those open house visitors will tend to be impressed with you before they've even met you. And then what you do at the open house hopefully impresses them even further. And now, what have you done? You've successfully differentiated yourself from the other 7 agents that they've run into in the past 2 months. And now they're thinking about working with you because you seem to have your act together. Um, the signage. So, number one thing to remember about signage is that you think that let's say that we're just doing, let's say that we're doing, just these pieces right here. So just this signage. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7 signs. So if we're doing just these 7 signs, and you think, okay, well maybe like, I don't know, 3, 5 minutes a piece. So let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 20, 30. So maybe 30 minutes to set up these signs. Um, Unfortunately, you're going to be mistaken. It takes a lot longer to set up signs. I was an hour and a half. I'd always plan for an hour and a half, and that is crazy. But it is um, it pays. It's honestly it's crazy not to do it. That's a better way to look at it. In any case, plan on your sign setup taking longer than you expect. To do what we've encircled here, I would probably expect would take 45 minutes to an hour. The main reason for that, maybe 45 minutes. The main reason is that you can't just like get out of your car at this intersection and go over and put a sign there. You have to like, um, sorry about that. You have to park like up here down the street where you can make this corner. Then you got to take your sign and you got to walk it all the way out to the intersection. And then once you're there, you've got to place the sign and then walk all the way back again. So that's a little mini project in and of itself, just getting that one sign up. You do the other thing over here where you have the same problem. You're gonna park somewhere else, walk all the way down, walk all the way back. It just takes time. So just for this one sign, you're looking at 5, 10 minutes. Or if you drive past it, you're like, oh, that's probably where I should park. So you got to wait at the light, make a U-turn, come back, turn left, park, go to your trunk, get the sign out, walk down, set it up, put the flag out, come back. It just takes a lot of time. Just believe you me, it does. Where can we set up that sign? The best place to put signs is, let's say that um, we have the, let's say this is a building, and then this is like the grass area around the building, and then this is the sidewalks. This is like going out into the street. This is a crosswalk. This is a crosswalk. And then here, then we have like a grass area. So this is grass. So grass area, sidewalks, and then we have our streets. So, and then our crosswalks. Best place for signs is in these little grass areas, obviously. And sometimes they're not grass. Sometimes there's just like a sidewalk and then like a patch of dirt. So you kind of put the sign. You want to put the sign as close as you can to the street without being on the street. That is ideal. So somewhere in this grass patch slash dirt patch is where you want to put your signs as close to the street as possible. Um, Now, in some instances, you're not going to have that grass patch. It's just going to be all road, right? So you get there and it's just a road, and right next to the road is the sidewalk. So, yes, in that instance, you're going to put your open house sign on the sidewalk. Is not ideal, but it is done constantly and all the time. Um, and you put your flag there just like you would normal. It's a and it's fine. It's not something that we've ever had a problem with. There are some areas like if you're doing an open house in the north end, um, you don't plan on putting a sign on Harrison Boulevard and having it stay there. So if you're trying to pull traffic off of Harrison Boulevard, the people are going to pull down your, they're going to tip your sign down. They're going to put a sign on it that talks about you can't do open house signs in the north end, which is not correct, but they're going to do it anyway. So you want to pull your traffic in the north end off of State Street and off of Hill Road and have minimal signage in the neighborhoods. So just minimal directional signage in the neighborhood. But everywhere else in the Treasure Valley, it's pretty much a free for all. So find the best place you can for the sign. But yes, if you have to, it goes right on the sidewalk. All right, so proper signage. The next thing is um, Craigslist. That is your second best source of open house traffic. So for there, I recommend that you run ads on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if your open house is on a Saturday, first ad is on Wednesday. And in the title of the ad, you're going to put that open house this Saturday, all capitals. So open house this Saturday, all capitals, then a hyphen, and then some like little nugget like cute North End bungalow. Open house Saturday, cute North End bungalow. So all capitals, open house this Saturday, hyphen, then capitals and lowercase, whatever your little snippet is. On Craigslist, when you look at ads, it's just a long list of titles. When they're scrolling through the titles, you want yours to jump out because it's an open house. A lot of people will be attracted to that ad and open it because it's an open house. Because remember, early stage buyers don't contact agents. Early stage buyers just shop online, or if they're curious, they'll look at an open house. You're having open house in the title will actually pull them into the ad. Inside the ad, you're going to want to have at the top, you're going to want to have your open house details. Open house this Saturday from 12 to 5. Then the description of the property. You can copy the description of the property out of the MLS listings, so the public remarks. So copy the public remarks, paste them into your Craigslist ad. Know that when agents put public remarks into the MLS listing, that they're limited by character count. So they'll do things like change the word and to an ampersand, or they'll eliminate transitive words. So the sentences will read more choppy, or they'll abbreviate words. So you want to fix all that. You have no character count limitation in Craigslist. So copy from the public remarks and then rewrite it or correct all the shortcuts and actually have it read properly. And feel free to expand on it. Look at the photos of the listing, and if there's a an expansive wood deck and the agent didn't comment on that, feel free to add that to your comments. Um, so flesh it out, make it read correctly. So open house this Saturday, 12 to 5. All the comments, and then again at the bottom say open house 12 to 5. And then that's the core of what you need. I have a Craigslist class where I talk about more different subtle Craigslist strategies. And we do revisit the open house ads at that time. But your core ad is just that. Open house this Saturday, description of the property, open house this Saturday, noon to 5. So open house, noon to 5, description, open house, noon to 5. That's the body. Then you want to bring in your property photos. With the property photos, I recommend that you not use all of them. Instead, pick out just the photos from the MLS listing that are the most impressive. And in fact, even leave out a photo of like the living room or the kitchen. Leave out an important photo because if you show them all the photos, then they've seen everything. But if you leave out a strategic photo or two and they don't think to research it otherwise online, like, oh, I want to see that kitchen. Okay, well then come to the open house on Saturday. So it's a subtle strategic thing that you can do to hopefully create curiosity, which will hopefully drive them to come to the open house. So leaving out a photo is recommended, and then only choosing the most impressive photos also recommended. Craigslist ad will have typically, I don't know, 8 to 10 photos, where the MLS listing might have 20. Wednesday, you post the ad, open house this Saturday. Friday, you post the ad again, open house tomorrow. And then Saturday morning, you post the house a third time and you say, open house today. And that's pretty much it. So you hit Craigslist 3 times in that fashion. You will typically pull an open house visitor or 2 from that activity. And I'm probably going to refine this now. I think Craigslist is now the 3rd best source, where the 2nd best source is just we'll say MLS/internet. And I'm saying that in that way because there never used to be, but there are now fields in the MLS listing where you can set and schedule and share with the world your open houses. So when you update the MLS with an open house day and time, that open house is then propagated out to the internet at large and will show up on Zillow and Realtor.com and Trulia and IdahoRealestate.com and BoiseIdaho.com everywhere. If it's your listing, you can book your own open house. If it's not your own listing, you either want to ask the agent who you're conducting the open house for to add it for you, or just as easily, just email Susan or I, and we can add it for you as well. From a preparation standpoint, having enough signs, making sure that your open house gets added to the MLS, and then running your 3 Craigslist ads. Those are the 3 primary sources of open house traffic. There is a 4th, which is the Idaho Statesman. The newspaper is largely dead as a advertising mechanism, with the exception of open houses. Some consumers still do turn to the newspaper for their to see where the open houses are. We run ads in the Statesman by agent request only. So we probably run ads, I don't know, once every month and a half. But if you are of a mindset that you want to run an ad in the Statesman to promote your open house, you can do that. I think the charge to us is like $55, and then we charge you guys $40, something along those lines. But I really can't recommend that you guys invest that money. I think that those same dollars are better invested elsewhere these days. But that is an option that's available to you if you want. Um, I want to also talk about getting your open house. So obviously, if you have listings of your own coming on the market all the time, then you're going to be doing open houses at your own inventory. If you don't currently have a listing of your own, you don't need to wait until you get a listing to do an open house. You can hold open houses open for other Atova agents. So you would simply go into the MLS, so open Paragon, do a search for status active listing office Atova. And if you want the low hanging fruit, choose occupied by vacant. Status active, listing office Atova, occupied by vacant. That will show you all of Atova's vacant listings. You can then scroll through them, find one that you find of interest, and is in a part of town that you like focusing on. Call the Atova agent and say, hey, if you're not already doing an open house at 1234 street name this Saturday, would you mind if I do? That Atova agent is almost always going to say yes, because who doesn't want the extra market exposure, right? It's only going to help the chances of that property selling, and so why not? Now, know this. Know that if you're status active, status active listing office Atova occupied by vacant, when you call the Atova agent and ask to do an open house at their listing, they're almost always going to say yes. But if you call on a owner occupied property, the answer is oftentimes, most often, going to be no. And the reason why is silly but very real. And that is that it's my listing, and if all of a sudden somebody else is showing up and doing the open house, it's going to make my client feel like I'm kind of passing the buck to somebody else, and my client's going to be like, well, why aren't you doing our open house? We hired you, not this person. So it compromises the relationship. And so you'll get more negative responses if you're trying to host an open house for somebody else that's occupied for that reason. So not to say that it can't be done, just to say that you're going to have a harder time doing it with an occupied one as opposed to a vacant one. Okay, so we've identified an open house, searched the MLS, found one we were interested in, called the Atova agent. They said sure, go for it. I have my signs, or I've borrowed them from another agent while I'm waiting for my signs to arrive. I've emailed Susie or Steve, and they've added the open house day and time to the MLS, so I know it's going to be out there on the internet. I've run my Craigslist ads on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and therefore I know that I have marketed my open house effectively. If you do this every time, proper signage, make sure it's in the MLS, run your 3 Craigslist ads. Again, pat on the back because you marketed your open house effectively. In timing, like how long do we do open houses for? You've heard me reference multiple times, noon to 5. Noon to 5 was what I always did. And the reason for it is that it's between every open house has prep, the open house, and takedown. And if you look at prep and takedown, given all the timing for putting up the signs and running the Craigslist ads and then getting to the open house and getting it opened up and ready, we'll talk about that in a minute too. Given all of that, you're going to be spending about 2.5 to 3 hours in prep and takedown. And so if you're doing that, it doesn't make any logical sense to do 3-hour open houses. You see a lot of agents, noon to 3, 1 to 4. Very, very common. I think that's ridiculous. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. And the reason why is that it's math, right? So if you have, I could do three open houses at 3 hours apiece. That means I would have 3 times 3 is 9. So that's 9 hours of open house time. It's a 9 hour sales window. If those three, if those same three open houses had 3 hours of prep and takedown each, then that's also 9 hours. So my 9 hours of open house sales window also means that I had 9 hours of prep and takedown. So I have an 18-hour investment that yielded a 9 hour sales window. Conversely, I could do three 5 hour open houses. That's a 15-hour sales window. But three open houses times 3 hours of prep and takedown each is 9 hours. It's still 9 hours. But I have a 15-hour sales window as opposed to a 9 hour sales window. So I'd much rather do, it makes more sense to do three 5 hour open houses than it does four 3 hour open houses. Four 3 hour open houses is 12 hours of sales window and 9 hours of open house. So that's 19 hours, 19-hour investment with a 9 hour sales window. Um, I'm not sure if I got that math right, but you guys get the point here, right? The point is, from a mathematical standpoint, given that you have 3 hours of prep and takedown, it makes sense to do fewer, longer open houses. So I would strongly encourage you every month to be doing a minimum of three 5 hour open houses. That is your baseline target. If you want to be like me and be insane, I was well, I won't give you my insane. That was every week. It was 8. It was 2, 4, 6, 8 every Saturday and Sunday, every month. I finally settled in on every Saturday and Sunday except one day a week. So at the end, when I finally hung up my hat and decided to be a broker instead of a salesperson, that's what I was doing. So Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, weekend off. Repeat. Um, okay, so 5 hours is what I strongly encourage. It's just a better mathematical use of your time. Um, let's talk about um, prep. So you've booked your open house. You coordinated with the other Atova agent and you got your open house. You have your signs. You've told us about this. You've run your Craigslist ads. So you get to the subdivision at 10:30 uh, because you need to get the house opened up and ready, and you need to have enough time to set up your signs before your open house starts at noon. So you get to the house. You want to just do a reality check, right? Is it, make sure there's no major, like a flood or something crazy, right? So you get to the open house and go do a quick inspection of the house. When you're there, you're not looking, you're not doing an inspection. You're just trying to make sure that it's show ready, right? So, and this takes me to your, my wife called it my open house arsenal, is what she called it. Your open house arsenal, and it was an arsenal. It was my trunk was 3 boxes of 5 open house signs each, and with my open house signs, when you get them, don't throw away the box that they come in. Instead, cut off the flaps to the box, and then reinforce the perimeter of the box with shipping tape. And what that does is it becomes a just like a receptacle. You can take your open house signs and put them in the box, and then you pull them out of the box very easily that way. And what that does is it prevents the signs from crashing around in your trunk and scraping up your trunk and scraping up each other. So it keeps your signs and your trunk looking nice. So I had 3 boxes of open house signs and then a box of like stuff. In the box of stuff, is all about helping to make sure that the home is in fact show ready. So from the outside working in, I'd have some little like 6-inch clippers or 12-inch clippers for trimming the bush back. Now I'm not going to go around the whole house and do yard work, but if there's a little walkway up to the front door and there's a bush sitting off to the side with a bunch of branches sticking out blocking the walkway, yeah, I'm going to snip those 3 branches and restore the path to the walkway. In the backyard, if the home has a big window looking out across the backyard and there's a bush with like little things sticking up that's blocking the view, I might kill a few of those guys too, get them out of there so that people can see the view. So very minimal, but a little bit of hedge trimming is sometimes in order. I'll have with me a box of the big black leaf bags, so that when I trim those bushes, I can snap them in half and put them in the leaf bag. Up on the front porch, if there's leaves that have blown up on the front porch, or if there are like a pizza coupon thing on the doorknob and the yellow pages shoved into the corner. I want to clean that up. If there's cobwebs up, I want to have a little broom. So I had a half-size broom and a dustpan, and I would get all that stuff off the front porch. The coupon and the yellow pages are not mine to throw away, so I'll put the coupon in the yellow pages, and I'll take the whole thing and I'll like put it under the sink, or I'll put it right outside the garage door. Um, but I'll clean up the front porch. So broom, dustpan, clippers, black trash bags. Um, Inside the home, I'm not going to clean, but I want to maybe hit the windows, or a couple windows. The window overlooking the sink. A lot of people will walk up to the sink and stand there to see what their view will be when they're doing dishes. So the window above the sink, I'll sometimes clean that, and that big picture window looking out the backyard. Sometimes I'll get that one as well if it needs it. So Windex and paper towels. That stuff was in my trunk all the time. I'd also have with me some Pine Sol. Now, the Pine Sol is not there for cleaning. The Pine Sol is there for smell. So if the home has a little bit of a musty smell or maybe a pet odor smell, first thing I do when I get to the open house is I'll open up a bunch of doors and open up a couple windows and try and get some fresh air into the place. And then I'll supplement that by putting a little bit of Pine Sol, on a rag or on a paper towel, and then I want to create a clean spot anywhere, so I'm gonna put Pine Sol I remember doing it under the kitchen counter, or like in door jams, just places where I could essentially place the smell without creating a clean spot. And so it is kind of silly. I mean, you feel like you're like wandering around the house, strategically placing smell, but that's exactly what you're doing. And so Pine Sol makes homes feel fresh and clean, which is a better smell than dank and musty, right? So it's the lesser of two evils. I do not recommend like cookies or baking something. That is uh, not practical, and the benefits are not real. And it's just it doesn't paint the right picture. You're there as a business professional. You're not there as a baker. Stay away from that. I wouldn't mind like bottled water, like having little half-size bottled waters that you can give to people. That's not a bad idea. So have some of those set out on the kitchen counter somewhere. That's fine. So you're going to get to your open house. You're going to walk through and clean it up a little bit in the ways I just described. Now that you've cleaned up the open house, you can lock it back down again and then go out and do your open house signage. So when you leave to do your open house signage, you put a note on the front door that says, setting up the signs. If you're here for the open house, please give me a call. And then your name, your phone number, and a smiley face. And you leave and you go set up the signs. Now, when you're setting up the signs for an open house, you want to set them up from the inside going out. So the first sign that you set up is in front of the house. Then the next sign you set up is the corner nearest to the house. And then the next corner, and the next corner, and the next corner working out. The reason we do this is because you never want to send somebody into a black hole. So if you started out and you worked your way in, somebody might start following your signs, but then they get to a point where the signs just stopped and now they're lost. So that's not the way to do it. So start in and work out. If anybody happens to see the sign and get to the house before you're done, they see the note and they'll either call you or they'll just leave. If they leave, that's okay. If they call you, you just tell them, hey, I've got 3 signs left. Should be about 10 minutes, maybe 15 if you want to grab a cup of coffee and circle back. Love to show you the house, but I've got to get the rest of these signs set up. And you have to. You should not, when you're setting up signs, stop to go open the door for somebody because you very well may not have a chance to go back out and do that to get the sign set up. So start closest to the house, work your way out. When you're done with your open house, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to start taking down the signs that are furthest away first, and then work your way in. And that's for the same reason. You don't want to send anybody into a black hole. So when you're taking down your signs, you put a note on the front door that says, taking down the signs. Actually, I don't say that. I would always say, stepped away for a moment. If you're here for the open house, give me a call and I'll run right back. Thanks, Steve. Phone number, smiley face. And so with that, I'm taking down my signs. I get a phone call. I will abandon taking down my signs to go perhaps find myself a client, right? And then when I'm done with them, I'll resume taking it down. So when you're setting up signs, make them wait. When you're taking down signs, abandon that to go open the door again if somebody's there. That's prep and takedown. So prep is marketing the home and then getting to the home and making sure that everything is as it should be. And then takedown is essentially locking the door, taking down all your signs, and then going back into the house and returning it to the condition it was when you arrived. So whatever lights were on, you leave on. Whatever lights were off, you leave off. You return the thermostat to whatever value it was. You make a double check that the windows and the doors are locked, and then you exit. Once you've done that, you're done, and you can move on. So there's one more piece to this, which is I'm going to do separately because I don't want to rush through it, and we are at 1 o'clock, so we're approaching the 2-hour mark for this class. And let me just make sure that there's nothing. I did the open house letter. Did the open house letter. Talking about the open house packages. Did prep and takedown. We did the dialogues. We did the strategies. We did the marketing, signs, Craigslist. I think I covered everything for today. The piece that I'm leaving out is an activity that runs parallel to the open house. We're actually going to be leveraging the open house to do a secondary activity that will actually probably earn you more income than the open house itself. So I will do that. What is the class tomorrow? Tomorrow is, I believe, CRM or CMA. And I'm definitely not going to do it there. So several of the classes are shorter, and so what I'll probably do is I'll piggyback it. So one of the classes next week, plan on me doing the follow-on open house training for this secondary activity. So I believe that is it for today. So get out there, do open houses. They are a great source of business. Do not let anybody try to tell you otherwise. Primarily, you're going to look at open houses as being like anything else. You're going to do them. you're not going to get immediate results, or you're going to be a little bit discouraged. You can't afford to do that. Open houses are like every other activity in the real estate space. The benefit comes over the long term. You're going to meet somebody at an open house that you had that conversation with, and they call you back 6 months later and tell you, hey, we did what you told us to do. We did what you asked us to do. We put your business card in our little book, and we remembered, and now we're calling you. And you're like, I'm so glad that you did that. That will happen to you. It will happen to you over and over and over again. It just happens a lot longer and a lot later than you think it's going to. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the class, and tune in tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we will do it all over again for CMA training. Until then, have a wonderful day. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye.